Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Basketball Maestros podcast. It's been a little while, so we have some catching up to do, but the NBA postseason chugging along. We are waiting for the Heat Celtics series to wrap up. We got one team in the NBA Finals at this point in time, the Denver Nuggets, making their first appearance in their franchise history. But before we talk about the conference finals, we're going to kind of do some reflecting on the second round matchups that happened, starting off with the Phoenix Suns. I'm sure we all know they were eliminated by the Denver Nuggets in 6 games. And obviously, they made a big move for KD this offseason, or at the trade deadline, I should say. And had a lot of expectations. I know some expected them to make it to the finals this year. Their bench was a big factor, and it definitely showed in that Denver series. And shockingly, let go Monty Williams, who was a guy that completely turned that Suns culture around. Obviously, led them to a 60-plus win season last year. And now he is on the market looking for a new team to coach. But with a new owner there, back to back years of just flaming out, getting embarrassed on your home court, it kind of makes sense. But if I were the Phoenix Sun brass, I would probably let Monty stick around for at least one more year so you can get a full year of um, KD and all those guys. But um, makes sense. New owner doesn't have any connection with Monty Williams and kind of wants to make this team his own, which makes sense. But overall, pretty disappointing year for the Suns just in terms of expectations. And heading into this offseason, they got some question marks. When they first got eliminated, there was some uncertainty with if Chris Paul is going to remain there, but it seems like he's going to stick around for at least next year. And probably the biggest one is DeAndre Ayton, who that whole series looked just disengaged and was quite embarrassing seeing the level of effort and energy he had on the court. Um, the Suns were finishing games with Jock Londale, so obviously Aiden wasn't providing anything for the Suns in the whole playoff run. So wouldn't be surprised if he's moved. I think the Suns just need a guy who's going to protect the rim, be a lob threat, and not require the ball. And Aiden's kind of just a guy who is a ball stopper in a sense. He likes to get the ball in the post and just go to work. So I don't think the Suns need that just with Booker and KD there. And you have Chris Paul showing flashes at times. But overall for the Suns, I think you are kind of just stuck with what you have with the big three, if you want to call it that, with Booker, KD, and CP. But there's not much you can do. Maybe just switch up some of your vet minimum guys, see if you can strike a little better on that front. But this is kind of what you're stuck at with a lot of, or with some superstars that make up a lot of money. So I think first things first, you see what DeAndre Ayton's market is. It's probably at its lowest since what he did this postseason run. But I think one of the rebuilding teams will definitely take a chance on it, and it will be interesting to see what kind of a package the Suns are offered, and if they're able to get any win now pieces for DeAndre Ayton will be interesting. But I think to get better with this team, you just gotta kind of get a good bang for your buck for DeAndre Ayton, which is definitely not going to be easy, but there's not many avenues the Suns can take in terms of free agency to get better this year. So we'll see. Obviously, not a great end to the season with a little deja vu moment of two European players just absolutely demolishing you on your home court. But I guess we'll see with this offseason. They got to get a new coach as well. Um, Out of the candidates that were rumored, I honestly cannot tell you which coach I'd prefer. I'd probably say Nick Nurse, um, just because he's a championship winning coach, obviously. But I think he's just the most experienced and a guy that is a good defensive coach as well. Um, but cannot say I'd be surprised if somehow Doc Rivers got that job as well, since he's a finalist for the Phoenix Suns job as well. But yeah, a lot of question marks, but don't know if they'll be able to answer all of them this offseason.
Yeah, very, very disappointing end to the year for the Suns. I originally thought they were going to win the series, and I have to give Denver their flowers. I think a lot of analysts, I think a lot of personalities, I think a lot of people in general were just sleeping on this team, and they really have proven everybody wrong and just silenced all the doubters, and rightfully so. Jokic is playing the best basketball in the world right now, and it showed. Jamal Murray is, you know, really stepping up to what he was a couple years ago in the bubble before he got injured. And this team's just playing great right now. Mike Malone has been excellent coaching wise, and um, can't really be too mad at that. But for the Suns, man, I mean, I thought they were gonna win. I think you just look at it, and a team with Katie and Book, it's just really hard to bet against it. But man, that bench really did show in that series. It really showed that they just weren't able to keep up. And it was just kind of weird when you have, I mean, guys like, I know that he hasn't played really well recently, but like TJ Warren and like guys that you kind of brought in that hope kind of fill in those bench pieces barely got any play. And I'll get into DeAndre in a second, but I just feel like it was just really unlucky. You're really gonna have to look at those minimum guys and just see like who can give us like 8 to 10 points a game. Like you're not asking for much. You just need a spark off the bench. And guys like Terrence Ross and like other, guys who've been in the league for a while just haven't weren't able to give it to you. Shout out Cameron Payne though, like 30 points in the elimination game. Really, really
Like
him. But
7 threes or something.
yeah. Um, but a lot of questions for the Suns upcoming. You know, what do you do in the off season? You just don't have the money. You obviously have a head coach vacancy right now. Um, but I think the answers are going to be a little bit more simple than people think. I think you really got to get DeAndre in out of there.
Hmm.
CP3, I think you can maybe look at the deadline next year and just kind of see what you can get. Because I know it's going to be a little bit harder to get him away, but you really got to move DeAndre in. He's still young. He's still I think he's around 25. I think I don't know exactly, but still a really young center in this league. And I truly think a change of scenery will get this guy to actually be motivated to play. He's just not looking excited to be there. Just disconnected, disengaged. And I think the main cores of this team, you can even tell that like guys like Devin and KD are definitely kind of done with this guy. So even with a new owner and all that, and probably a new head coach and coaching staff, I don't see a world where he's back. Um, but depending on what the Suns get back, I don't think. I don't know his first name, but it's Jock, right? Jock Landale.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he was bad. I think you definitely bring him back. I'm not saying being your starter, but I think he deserves a bench spot next season. I know he went undrafted, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, I think you just really got to see what you get from a trade like that. But if I'm a Suns fan, I'm not feeling good right now because KD's getting up there in age, and then um, you don't really know how much more he has left in the tank. Because I'm honest with you, there were moments in that series. I don't know if you agree, where it was just KD was not looking like the guy that
Yeah,
we're
he's
used
not
to.
good.
There are moments. I mean, he shot real poorly in Denver. I think in both of those games, and even like in the elimination game, like even you could even call out Devin as well. But Devin, it kind of just looked like he kind of ran out of gas. I mean, he was carrying this team. He was really good in the
He was
first and
great.
second round. But KD, even as a Suns fan, man, you got to be a little upset at him because you gave up your future. You gave up the guys that you have been developing. If you've seen, Mikhail, you know, come into a role that he's able to flourish, and you saw the talent that he has this past season in Brooklyn. So, Suns fans kind of got to be a little upset, but we'll have to see what happens. Definitely other questions. I think Doc is going to get that the
Oh
job.
god.
It has it written all over it. I don't see a world where he doesn't, but it would definitely be kind of funny. But you can at least guarantee that the Suns will get into a 7-game series um, next year because Doc will get him there and leave it. So it's okay.
Nice transition for Doc Rivers. The Philadelphia 76ers took a commanding 3-2 lead, and all signs were pointing to them finishing out at home. It was a little bit of an up and down game for the Sixers, but in the fourth quarter, they were starting to figure things out. And I was watching the game till like the 5 minute mark of the fourth quarter, and they're up by like 4 or 5, I want to say. And I had to leave, and then I was checking my phone, and I just saw they just absolutely blew the game, and Jason Tatum got rolling. And typical Doc Rivers fashion, they lose that game at home, go to a game 7 where it was close throughout, and I believe in that second half it just got ugly very fast, and Jason Tatum putting up 50 points in that game 7, and the Sixers again just cannot get over the hump in the second round, and this was kind of the year you expect Philly to at least get to the conference finals, and they definitely had the opportunity to get there. But when you look at it, you have two of the arguably biggest playoff droppers on your team in James Harden and Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid has gotten injured in the playoffs and or has just not been good. And that's been both this postseason run, obviously with, I believe, a knee sprain, and just was not great offensively. Same with James Harden. Obviously, he's really old now. Just not looking just as effective as he is. Just cannot finish at the rim effectively as you would hope. And again, a team with a lot of question marks this offseason. Letting go Doc Rivers felt like the writing was on the walls if they just flamed out this postseason run, and of course they did. So they're another team with championship aspirations with a head coaching spot open, and now you got James Harden, a pending free agent. He has an option, which he's probably going to decline. And there's a lot of smoke around him going back to Houston. And I believe you said it. We kind of talked about this series of the Sixers lost as James Harden gone. And I think you kind of just anticipate James Harden's going to leave. I think he's probably going to want a bag, maybe probably a max, which I think everybody can agree he is nowhere near that at this point in time. But I think all signs are pointing to him going back to Houston. Now, at this point, as the Rockets roster's looking, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But maybe this free agency, they kind of just go all in on a veteran movement, bring in a guy like James Harden to kind of, I don't know if he's a great mentor, but I'm sure he can teach Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. some things and kind of just restore some order in a sense. You got Udoka there now, who I think is definitely a lot better than Steven Silas, and he's going to hold people accountable and bring a winning culture there, which we haven't seen in Houston for a few years now. But yeah, I think James Harden, if for the right team friendly deal for Houston, makes sense because I think Houston Rocket fans are probably getting a little impatient of just sucking for the past couple of years, and not getting Vic hurts too. But he still got a Lowry pick, so that will help as well. But I think now's the time to kind of just turn this process into a winning process, start improving, and instead of just tanking for lottery picks. So, um, yeah, I think getting back to the point, the Sixers are kind of nearing the end of this core. Now, if James Harden walks out, I have no clue who you put around Joel Embiid. If there's even going to be a star out there for you to get to put around him is going to be an interesting question. And how much longer is Joel Embiid going to want to stay there is another question. But it's not like he's been great in the postseason either. So, again, a team with a lot of question marks heading into the season. So, if Harden walks out, there's not a lot of options to replace him with, at least this free agency class. Unless you're like somehow able to pry away like a Chris Middleton or somehow a Kyrie Irving or something. But yeah, just a team with not much left. You had like the Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler years. Then you had Joe and Ben there for a couple of years. So um, they've tried a different assortments of teams and just nothing is stuck. And yeah, I just don't know how you navigate this offseason. So it's going to be interesting to see. And James Harden to Houston seems like, I don't know if it's necessarily a done deal, but I think it's definitely a real possibility. So yeah, man, Sixers definitely in a very, very tough position here.
I really wanted them to just somehow find a way. I was so happy when they took the 3-2 lead, but once they lost in Philly, I knew it was over, sadly. Um, but Jason Tatum had a great game 7. It's kind of hard to kind of counter that, but um man, I first of all, I have to I think everyone who's a, NBA fan has definitely been criticizing Joel Embiid to a certain amount, and I think he kind of deserves it all. Um, for being the MVP of the league and for being a superstar for I don't know how many years, the fact that you haven't gotten past the semis is kind of like, or um quarterfinal, I don't even know, but second round, I'll just say second round. Um, he hasn't even gotten past the second round in his career. Like that's absurd, and I think Joel Jeff definitely needs to kind of step up a little bit in the playoffs because he's had a lot of bad performances. And I really love him as a player, and we're seeing guys like Jokic who turn up, who take a step up in the playoffs. LeBron in the past has stepped up in the playoffs. Steph stepped up these playoffs. Maybe not so much the second round, but he carried his team past the Kings in the first round, and you just wish to see that from Joel. And it's just like, just towards the end of seasons, he just looks gassed. Like he just looks tired. He looks like he's hurting, and rightfully so, because I know that he's had those knee injuries. I know that he's been hurt. So he doesn't have the best durability as other guys. So it really does suck, but you just really wish for him to kind of step up. Um, but kind of moving on with Doc, I think everyone saw it coming. I think it's the right move. You got to get rid of him. I mean, I haven't really found success with him there. He's gotten you to top seeds. He's gotten you to, close series, but he just cannot. He's not the guy that'll get you over the hump, sadly. And, I'm kind of happy that um, they fired him. I feel bad for the next team that's going to, kind of take him on and see what he can do. But, kind of moving on to Harden, I don't know what is going through your mind as a GM, as a front office staff, to kind of just convince yourself to say, yeah, James Harden deserves a super max. Yeah, he deserves a max. Like, we'll pay him that. Like, I am praying the Rockets, they're going to have, like, the Rockets are going to have Harden, but I'm praying they don't give him the super max or like a max because he just doesn't deserve it, man.
No,
Like, he's going to be 34 years old at the start of next season. Like, come on. Like, there's no way you can convince yourself that he deserves that much money. But he's going to get it anyway. He's going to go in Houston where he wants to be, and that's going to be something interesting for next season. But Philly, maybe you can get a sign and trade done. Maybe that's possible. I don't really know how possible it would be, but it's gonna be hard, man. I don't know where you go from this. I think that they should definitely go after Monty or Nick Nurse. Those are probably the 2 guys that I would look at aggressively. But, like, the team really isn't that young. They don't have too many young guys. Tyrese Maxey's been playing really good. Tobias Harris is supposed to make, like, $30 million this season. He's a free agent next year. But, like, really outside of Embiid and Maxey, like, this roster is not good, so the front office definitely have to figure something out. Um, but I wouldn't be too happy if I'm a Sixers fan right now because the future doesn't look too bright in my opinion, so we'll have to see what happens over in Philly.
And then it's shifting back out to the West. The Golden State Warriors got eliminated for the first time by a Western Conference team under the Steve Kerr era, courtesy of the LA Lakers. Took an exit in 6 games against LA, and now again another team with a lot of question marks. Bob Myers, kind of the mastermind behind this Warriors dynasty, seems like he's not going to come back. Him and the team have just not been able to find a contract extension. So Bob Myers is definitely going to be a hot name on the market for the GM position. So I'm sure he won't be without a job for long. But Bob Myers seems like he's on the way out. Draymond Green has a player option. Um, so we'll see if he's going to decline or accept that. Then you have Klay Thompson. I believe he has 1 more year left on his deal. I'm going to have to look that up. But Klay Thompson, um, granted, he's still kind of working his way back after those 2 injuries. And the rumor is he wants max money. So they're going to have to pay Klay Thompson or pay Klay as well. So a lot of things to handle for the Golden State Warriors. And of course, you have the Jordan Poole thing. Jordan Poole, you paid him a bag after last year's final run. And granted, he was great last year for the Warriors, but this year he was just an absolute liability for them. And it just goes to show that the movement of kind of just trying to grow young talent and running with a championship competitive team has just not worked out. Um, Jonathan Kuminga has been a DMP for them. They've had to give minutes to Moses Moody just because they were just trying to find some sort of bench production, and he was actually pretty good in the Lakers series. So the Warriors were just on their heels that whole second round. They started JaMychal Green at some points. Kevon Looney was coming out the bench, and it was just overall, you just saw the flaws of the Golden State Warriors. Steph Curry kind of struggled. Just everybody struggled this whole series. So um, maybe it's not the complete end for the Warriors. I mean, you still have at least Clay for 1 more year, and you go from there. Maybe Draymond, he said that he wants to come back. So maybe he just accepts his option and worries about a contract next year. But um, wasn't a great look for the Warriors to go out um, that bad in a game 6 where they kind of just got manhandled the whole game. So um, be interesting to see who fills out Bob Myers' role and if it's really going to be that detrimental. I think it will, but I guess we'll see. I think maybe it's slowly the beginning of the end for the Warriors, but I think they'll probably hang on for 1 more year of this whole core and just um, deal with the consequences at the end. But um, very, very interesting to see if the Warriors give Clay max money, which, yeah, he's still great. He's a serviceable NBA player still, despite all his injuries. But you definitely saw the shooting flaws in that Lakers series. So um, we'll see, man. They have a lot of questions and a lot of guys. Um, I know Draymond's going to want some money. Clay's going to want some money. But we'll see if the Warriors still open up that checkbook and pay their guys handsomely. So we'll see.
Yeah, I know some guys are just kind of harping on the Warriors right now, but I think it's really all perspective. I think it was really unlucky for them to match up with the Lakers in the second round. Like, I think if they go against the Grizzlies, maybe they go against the Suns if seeding was a little different. I think they're in the Western Conference Finals. Now, would they win against the Lakers or Nuggets or, a team that they don't match up well against? Probably not. But, they just weren't, ready to play a team that's, let's just be honest, like the Lakers were just, bigger. We had more length, we had more size. Like, it's just all that stuff and a normal, sane basketball fan could see. So, it's kind of the writing on the wall for them to lose, in my opinion. That's why I think a lot of Laker fans were so confident, even with that stupid, corgi stuff going around that, oh my God, they're going to come back. Like, no, we'll be fine. But, you know, I think Clay kind of needs to look himself in the mirror and kind of realize, like, yeah, does it suck that I got injured twice? It really does. But um, you gotta just look at your numbers and just realize that you're not the same player you were before injury. It sucks. I don't want to like, it just sounds harsh, but it really is because um he's not the player that he was a couple years ago. Yeah, can he still knock down 5, 6 threes a game if he wants to, if he's feeling it? Yeah. When you're a great shooter, like when you're one of the best shooters of all time, you can always knock down a couple threes. But he just does not look like the same player he was, and he really, I think, needs to take a pay cut. Or this Warriors roster is um, definitely will not be looking good, or well, money wise, will definitely be looking kind of rough. Draymond, I fully expect to decline his player option. Um, I don't know
Future
where. I mean, we already know where he wants to go, but maybe he stays, like he said. The Jordan Poole situation is definitely going to be weird. Obviously, he averaged like 8 points in that series. I don't really know what you do with him, but I think if Draymond leaves, I think I keep him 100%. That guy that punched you in the offseason's gone, so maybe that will help him a little bit. But I think I don't know how much it affected him, but I truly think that his game took a step back because of that incident. It's kind of hard, I feel like, in a locker room to kind of get over, you and a teammate getting in that big of an argument to where he fully punches you and like that kind of escalates to that kind of degree. Obviously, does it affect him as much now in the postseason where I'm going to give him a pass for 8 points per game? No, but I think it's still in the back of your mind. It would still be in the back of my mind for sure. When kind of tensions are flaring and guys are passionate in the playoffs. Um, it would still kind of bother me. But man, I don't. This team is kind of like the Sixers. I think you just kind of got to ride it out with the guys you got. You have some young talent. They're in a little bit better of the position with the Sixers. I mean, they still have Kuminga. They have Moses Moody. I mean, I just don't know where they really go, what guy they can go out and get. Maybe you trade for DeAndre Ayton. Maybe a little bit of a fresh scene for him in the Bay Area will maybe help him out. But other than that, also with losing Bob Myers, probably that's definitely not going to be a good thing. But I think I don't know how many years Steph has, but once that Steph contract's over, I think the Warrior reign will finally be over because Clay's just not him. Steph's like 35. Draymond, probably will leave, and it's gonna be an end of an era. I think this loss to the Lakers, fully solidified that you know, this Warriors organization better gear up for a rebuild because um, I think that their kind of runs over after this year.
I'm looking at Steph's contract. It's actually insane. He's making 51 next year, 55 the year after, and the final year of his deal, $59 million. So Steph is definitely getting paid handsomely while he's still a Warrior. But yeah, be very interesting to see. I have a lot of questions to answer. Um, can't wait to see Draymond to the Lakers this offseason. The New York Knicks were eliminated by the Miami Heat, and talk about the Heat a little later, but kind of on their Cinderella run at this point. But um, yeah, the Knicks, I think the two biggest questions for them this offseason is what do you do with Julius Randle and RJ Barrett? I think you're at a point. It shouldn't have taken this long, but I think the Knicks had to realize that you can't have championship or just deep playoff run aspirations with Julius Randle being your second star. I think it's obviously Jalen Brunson number one at this point, but Julius Randle, he's just. I mean, he's just he is what he is at this point. Not a fan of how jump shot happy he gets at points. His body language can be awful at times. Um, doesn't have the greatest positive outlook when things get hard at times. So RJ Barrett, he's kind of always been an inconsistent player. He had his ups and downs in this playoff run, but I think that's just the two biggest questions you have. Do you really value Julius Randle that much? Um, what can you get for Julius Randle and what can you get for RJ Barrett? Because I haven't been the biggest RJ Barrett supporter the past couple of seasons. He just hasn't looked great to me. He's not the greatest jump shooter in the world. And just the Knicks team that you saw their offensive struggles during this playoff run. So I think for the Knicks, you try to spice things up and bring in more offense because with Tibbs being your head coach, I think defense is probably just a given at this point. If you still have a healthy balance between offense and defense, so I think maybe you try to flip Julius and RJ just for some more offensive punch because Jalen Brunson was doing it all postseason long, but there wasn't too much support behind him. So if I'm the Knicks, I'm looking for trade packages around either one or both of RJ or Julius. If I had to guess, they'd probably move off RJ first before Julius. So I think that's probably just the next direction for the Knicks. Just your defense has been good, but just your offense has been up and down, inconsistent. Not a lot of guys that can put the ball in the basket for my liking. So I think that's probably the two biggest things I look for the Knicks this offseason.
Yeah, if I'm the Knicks front office, I liked what I saw from. It wasn't amazing, but I think I liked more of what I saw from RJ this postseason than what I saw from Julius. I'm one of those. I truly think you have to find a way to get him off your team this offseason. I just think that it's so bad the post game. I think what sold it for me was the post game interview saying I don't think we wanted enough.
Yeah,
I think that moment there solidified that Julius Randle is off this team. Now what you can get for him, I have no idea. No idea who or what, teams out there saying, we want Julius. But I think the answer is kind of simple for the Knicks. I think you just find a way to retool a little bit. Just kind of get some more scorers around Jalen Brunson. I think you really got to focus on building around Jalen Brunson because he is truly, special in what he was able to accomplish this postseason. That turnover he had in the late in Game 6 in Miami, I think it was really unfortunate. I think it really sucks for your season to end like that, but I think this team doesn't really need to make too many drastic changes besides Julius. I think you realistically can just retool a little bit and come back the next year fine. So we're gonna have to see what happens with them, but I think that this team can be a top 4 seed next year, depending what they do. And I think with a little bit of other teams possibly getting weaker, you don't know what's going to happen with the Sixers. I know they're going to lose Harden. We don't know what happened with Embiid and stuff like that. But um, I think that this Knicks team, if they develop right and if they hit on some moves this offseason, I think they could be a top 4 seed next year, honestly.
And then the last team out in the West, the good old LA Lakers. In Laker fashion, not even 24 hours after we got swept. Um, there was already rumors flying about Mr. Kyrie Irving for the third time in a row. You got Trey Young being thrown out there. And I made a TikTok about this. I think for Laker fans, yes, D'Angelo Russell was awful in the Western Conference Finals, but and he hasn't even been a playoff riser his whole career. But I think this postseason run was a step in the right direction. You saw what he did in the closeout game against Memphis. You saw what he did in the closeout game against Golden State. He definitely had his fair share of performances. Obviously, you would want more in the Western Conference Finals, which makes sense. And I think this offseason he's going to have to compromise, and the Lakers are going to have to compromise as well. They're going to have to negotiate a team-friendly deal, and I would say around like the low 20s, I'd probably say is probably fair at this point, but I guess we'll see. You got Vando coming back. Rui and Austin are probably the two biggest targets for the Lakers at this point. I think they're absolute no-brainers to bring them back. I think I saw something about Austin could probably get up to like a 4-year, $90 million contract sheet, which again, a lot of money, but you just got to match it. You just have to. And I'm curious to see what Rui gets, but whatever he gets, he matched that as well. I would envision probably 10 to 13, maybe 15 for Rui. He was great the whole playoffs. When he first came to LA, he was a little spotty, a little up and down. Darvin Ham had the balls to give him a DNP, and I thought, oh yeah, Rui's probably gone after that DNP. So thankfully, he redeemed himself. The coaching staff believed in him in the playoffs, and he definitely came through. He was just an absolute monster. And again, Austin and Rui are just no brainers. And I think for the Lakers, you just bring back as much as the core as you can. You got a mid-level. I think you got a biannual exception as well. So I think our taxpayer is like 12 mil and our biannual is like 5 mil. So you have a little more firepower to improve this team with. Dennis, I assume, is probably gone. Lonnie's probably gone. Troy, I'd probably say he's gone. So you're definitely going to have to make some moves here. You got Mo Bamba, who you got to guarantee his deal, or you can just let him walk. Malik Beasley's team option. You can package those two guys in like a pick and see what you can get for a role player, or you have your number 17 pick. You can pick there, or use that to trade and get better. So you have a lot of options for the Lakers, and it'll be interesting to see. I've seen on Twitter some Laker fans calling for Brook Lopez. I mean, if you can get him for somehow the taxpayer, then great. That'd be amazing. But it'd be very interesting to see. But I don't know if he wants to walk away from Milwaukee. But regardless, I think I would use the mid-level on a bench point guard or a center because I think I agree with the sentiment of I think it's time to put AD back at the 4 and put a center that can space at the 5 with AD. You saw it with Marcus Gasol, who was a great passer. You just put him at the top of the key, ready to shoot, or he can make passes to cutters and stuff like that. So I think maybe you explore that, putting AD back at the 4 and get a spacing 5. So definitely a lot of viable options to the Lakers, but I think at the utmost importance, keep Austin, keep Rui, and get D'Lo on a team-friendly deal, and just fill out the roster with those biannual and taxpayer and see what happens. But if we don't bring back this core, I'll be very disappointed. So I expect like at least 80% of the core to stick around and kind of just build off what we did this postseason run, get a full 82 in, get a training camp in, and just see what happens. And the whole LeBron retirement thing, he's coming back. Um, I think it's just kind of a tactic for him just to apply a little bit of pressure on the front office to make a little more moves to improve the team, so he's not having to play all 48 and drop 40 just to lose. So I think it makes sense for LeBron to apply a little bit of pressure, but I think it's all smoke. He's definitely going to come back this year. So um, kind of crazy to say this might be LeBron's last year at pushing for a championship. So I think you just got to push all your chips on the table, try to get as many pieces as you can, and feel confident in the team that can make a push for one last ride at a championship, and then take it from there. I believe after this year, LeBron and AD have player options, so could very well be the end of the LeBron AD era next year, but time will tell.
Yeah. First of all, I truly do. I think that LeBron was kind of a little serious about his comments. I think with that injury and just, I think for a second he was kind of like, do I want to do it again? Like, I think naturally, like, you're thinking, do I really want to come back for year 21 and go through this whole process again? But I think at the end of the day, he will come back. I
Mhm.
do think that he did give it like a couple hours, like a little bit of thought. But regarding next year, I think we need a center, obviously. Just all I ask is to get Austin and Rui back. And I'm not opposed if we were to get a Kyrie. Um, I'm not opposed to it. Is it what we should do? I don't know. I don't know what we should do. But D'Lo really upsetted me this Nugget series. I'm be honest with you. And I know that it sucks, and I know that like we kind of expected this, but like I did have a couple thoughts to be like, man, what if we had Kyrie right now and not D'Angelo Russell? Now, what would our bench look like? What would our cap situation look like? I honestly couldn't answer that to you. But I just regarding or just ignoring Kyrie for a second, I definitely want to bring Mo back. I know we didn't see too much of him, but I'm interested to see what we could get out of him. I think we need to sign and trade Malik instantly, get him away from me forever. Troy's probably gone. If there's a world we can get Lonnie back, I want that world, but he's probably gonna go run it up like Malik did last year. Go get his money. Um, who else am I forgetting? I think that's it. I mean, Vando's gonna come back, but
Dennis.
I mean, if we get him back for the minimum, sure, but I'm not paying him anymore.
True.
Um, but even if we were to get a Kyrie, if we can keep like Austin, like Rui and Vando, like I still like this team. I would still like what we have if we can sign and trade Malik. I don't know how the cap space works and like how I haven't like I don't know what's possible, but I would assume if we can somehow keep Mo, Austin, Rui, Vando comes back, somehow get Kyrie, I wouldn't hate the team personally. Maybe you can sign and trade Malik for something. I've even looked at the scenarios to where we can get a Kyrie, to be honest with you. So
Yeah,
maybe what I'm saying is impossible.
if we want, I don't think it's gonna happen. But if Kyrie were to do a sign and trade, it would hard cap us. So we'd be LeBron, AD, Kyrie, and maybe Austin, and that's about it. And then your bunch of minimums.
Yeah, gotta hit on those minimums. Bring back Dennis for a
Which
minimum. I think you just like tell Rui, pretty please come back for a minimum for 1 year. And then you tell him, like, I swear, like, we'll pay you a lot next year. And if he does it, then he does it. But it's just gonna be hard for me, man, watching another year of D'Lo. Like I loved D'Lo. I was happy with what he did, but man, dude, that series was rough for him because if he just plays a little bit better, like that series goes to 6 at least. We close out like 2 of those games if we get something from D'Lo. Because man, it was just hard to watch. But I don't really want to talk about the Lakers anymore. I'm mentally done with this team. If Dennis comes back, I'm gonna have real problems with that. That's all I'm gonna say. Because for a minimum player, he's really good. His defense is real. I like his defense. I like, a lot of things that he can bring to the team as a minimum player. But man, his brain is just not there sometimes.
yeah, and on the other side, the Denver Nuggets making their first NBA final appearance and beating the Lakers for the first time in a playoff series. So, got some history being made and kind of eating my words. I know entering this playoff run this year, I didn't know how to gauge the Nuggets and if they were really serious this year or not. And man, I was totally proven wrong. They just completely manhandled the Lakers. Granted, all the games were pretty close. Um, they were just able to just handle and respond all the Lakers runs. The Lakers had many double digit leads in this series, and they were just able to respond. And Michael Porter Jr., KCP, Jamal Murray being probably the one or two best player in the series, if you want to put him or Jokic. But Jamal was averaging 30 on 50, 40, 90. Jokic was just putting up 30-point triple doubles this whole series. And you had KCP getting his revenge on the Lakers. He was great this series as well. Aaron Gordon putting up 20 in the closeout game. So you just have a lot of great role players and weapons on this Nuggets team. And um, I think it's well deserved for Jokic. Um, I assume the Heat and the Nuggets are going to get there. We'll talk about the Eastern Conference Finals in a second, but I still envision a Nuggets Heat series. But if that were to happen, I would not be opposed to Jokic or Jimmy winning a ring. So, regardless, yeah, we got swept by the Nuggets. It was pretty hard to watch, but at the end of the day, you just got to respect how great of a team this Nuggets team is. Forgot to mention Bruce Brown as well. He's been great for this Nuggets team the whole year. So, um, the best Nuggets team that's been assembled around Jokic for sure. And if they're able to cash in on a ring, that'll be a huge, huge thing for them. So, Jokic, I know a lot of people want him to be a 3-time MVP. And I know I said on this podcast I wanted Joel to get MVP, but after watching what Jokic did this whole playoffs, he definitely deserved a third MVP. He's just insane. So, but overall, Nuggets have had a really great year, being a number one seed, handling business throughout this playoff run. And personally, I would, whoever comes out of the East, I would probably say they're my favorites to win it this year. So I think it's definitely deserving for Denver.
Yeah, just really good for the Nuggets, man. Um, Sucks. It's just kind of bittersweet because I really wanted the Lakers to make it, but I am happy for Jokic and those guys over there as well. KCP. I loved your time on the Lakers. You were kind of really gave me headaches sometimes, but happy that you get to go compete for another finals or for another ring as well. Jamal deserves this. He, tore his ACL and his whole road back. I'm really happy that he's able to perform and kind of really show the world that he's a legitimate playoff performer. He will turn up in the playoffs. Jokic, got drafted during a Taco Bell ad, and now look at him, probably arguably the best player in the world right now. Um, Mike Malone has done an excellent job these past couple of years just to keep this team so locked and just to keep them, one of the best teams in the league. Or, a lot of people mid-season are just like, man, I don't, the Nuggets aren't going to do it. You know, they just don't have people just don't think that they'll be able to kind of get over that hump. And even this year too, the number one seed, and people are still saying that, oh, you're going to lose in the first round. Like if you get the Lakers in the first round, like, we can see the Nuggets losing. And through all that noise and, kind of through everything, they're here. I kind of agreed, even as a Laker fan, with what Mike Malone was saying all series. Like they're literally destroying us in this series, and the Lakers are still. It's still somehow getting spun to, guys. The Lakers have this. Like they have it. Like let's calm down. And no one. I still don't think, like, even for what they get their 2 seconds of spotlight, where congratulations on the Nuggets making the NBA Finals. Will LeBron James retire? Like that's literally all it's been. Like I feel bad for the Nuggets and the players and just the fans, where it just feels like that no one really cares that they made it. But I truly am, very happy for them, and I can't wait to see what um they're going to be able to do against either the Heat or Celtics. But we'll have to see what happens with who they face. But you know, just really overall a great season. But I still do think Embiid deserved the MVP. But I'm just a guy that looks at it like I'm only thinking a regular season, and I think at the end of the regular season, I truly did believe he deserved it.
Mhm.
But obviously now, if I think about it, Jokic deserved it. Like Jokic deserves those 3 MVPs. He'll probably get one more in his career, but um, yeah, it definitely was the wrong choice looking at it now. But I think at the end of the season, it was the right move.
And then moving on to a very interesting series that's starting to heat up. The Celtics force a game 6 back in Miami after falling down 3-0, where in that Miami home game, it looked like they're dead to rights, getting absolutely manhandled in game 3. And now we're starting to see some life here. Um, Winning 2 games in a row now, heading back to Miami. I guess the simple question is, will Boston be able to pull off the first 3-0 upset in NBA history? Um, I was saying yesterday, I think if the Celtics won last game, they definitely flipped the script in terms of who the pressure's on. I think people are starting to realize, okay, Miami's really got to wrap this thing up now. And it'll be interesting because this is kind of the do or die game in a sense. I know Miami won both at Boston in 1 and 2, but a game 7 in Boston is very, very dicey stuff. So Miami is definitely in a weird position here. Um, After all the Eric Spoelstra and Jimmy Butler positivity we gotten, everyone giving them their flowers for what they've done as an AC this postseason. To be the first team to give up a 3-0 lead would be interesting. But um, I still want to say the Heat probably got this, but they lose at home. That'd be very, very tough. So um, I can definitely recognize Boston kind of pushing the envelope here. I'll give Boston like a 20% chance. I think it's definitely still there, but I have a hard time believing that Eric Spoelstra and just the whole Heat team's gonna blow this lead at this point. But hey, you never know. They're an 8 seed for a reason. But all eyes on this game 6 because if the Heat lose this game, I think it's probably over for them because I have a hard time thinking Boston's going to lose at home in a game 7 where it's going to be a sold out crowd and it's going to be a whole lot of noise there. And we saw what Jason Tatum did in the game 7 last round. So the Heat definitely have some pressure on them, but I still firmly like to believe that the Heat probably have this series wrapped up.
Man, if the Heat really blow this, it's gonna be insane to think about. I haven't watched game 4 and 5, but I truly believe that when the Celtics players are saying, "Don't let us get one," like I was fully like bought into like if they get one, like the Heat are kind of screwed because now the all the pressure is on them now. Like they had it in the bag 3-0, no one really cared. Like game 4 was like, "Oh, you can lose one." But now going back to Miami Saturday night, like if they don't win this game, it is going to be I don't see a like if they lose Saturday, I think we're going to see the first 3-0 comeback of all time. I truly do if they lose on Saturday cuz there's just no way. And I've said there's just no ways a lot this postseason. So the Heat can very much win Game 7 at this point. I fully believe that they can still win, but um, man, I just it's gonna be hard, man. Jimmy hasn't looked good these past 2 games, and I think the Celtics are finally stepping up. I think Joe's kind of I don't know what's happening in that locker room to be honest with you, but I one part of me just says that there's no way that the Celtics players will kind of allow themselves to go out like this. And I think that Joe will be able to kind of rally them and coach them back. But at the same time, I just think Spo is just a 10 times better coach than him, and they'll find a way to close this out. So I'm kind of 50-50 on it, but I think game 6 will kind of show us, you know, everything. But honestly, I think the Nuggets are destroying either one of these teams, to be honest with you. I think they're just playing too good of basketball right now. And I think um, the Celtics obviously would be a little bit harder for them, but I think if there's 2 matchups I'm really interested to see, and it's Bam versus Jokic and Horford / Robert Williams on Jokic. I really want to see what kind of happens there with both those matchups. So I think it'll be interesting to see kind of both those guys get a shot at the big man in a full 7-game series. But man, if I'm Jimmy, if I'm that Heat locker room, if you lose that game 6, that locker room is going to be silent. And I know a lot of those players are going to be like, damn, we are about to blow 3-0 lead. And it's going to be a lot of pandemonium if they lose. So we'll have to see. We will have to see. All eyes on Saturday night, guys.
Yeah. So at least this series is dragging on a little bit, so we're not left with a week without basketball. So that's good. But finals are somewhat upon us. June 1st is when game 1 takes place. So time will tell if Boston will be able to pull this off. It'll be very interesting to see the first team pull off a 3-0 comeback in my lifetime. So that'll be pretty fun to witness. But yeah, that'll about do it for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. It's been a little while, so a little bit of catch up on this episode, giving our thoughts on some previous matchups. But overall, the NBA postseason kind of flew by at this point, and the finals are almost here. And then on to the offseason, which I'm sure, hopefully, it's still somewhat exciting. It's not a great free agency class, but guess we'll see. But yeah, that'll do it for this episode. Thank you for tuning in, however you did on YouTube or Spotify and all those streaming services. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. Feel free to check us out on all our socials at the Basketball Maestros on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And we will see you guys next time.